Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Bullion. We have a very special guest today who's seen it all, and of course, he's a sound money advocate. Our guest today is former Congressman Dr. Ron Paul. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Paul.
Ivan, nice to be with you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted to get you down to talk about everything that's happening in the financial markets and of course in precious metals. We're looking at silver and gold prices these days and they just keep going up and up, of course, to due to the physical policy and more. My first question for you, Dr. Paul, is what do you believe would happen if the Federal Reserve were fully audited? What secrets would Americans discover?
Well, they would discover that a lot of shenanigans are going on. There's a lot more money and cash and credit circulating in the world, especially when there's a financial crisis. I don't think the try and understand when they have an investigation who got what. I don't think anybody knows because I think the Fed operates in secrecy, and that to me is a big problem because so one person once complained, a supporter. He said, "I don't know if I'm going to support you. You're not for getting rid of the Fed." I said, "What do you mean?" I says, "I wrote a book on this." He said, "No, you're only for the audit." Now, well, I do spend a lot of time on the audit, believing that if we knew what the Fed was doing, the people would demand something be done about it and look into it. And I think to some degree that the ordinary media, not only hard money groups, have talked more about the Fed in the last several years than they had for a long time because they've sort of neglected it. But I think a lot of people are interested, and I think that people are realizing that we're in a mess, and I think a lot more people are interested in trying to protect themselves about for the diminishing value of the dollar by looking at the precious metals.
Dr. Paul, how would a return to the gold standard affect the U.S. economy and government policy? Is it even possible?
Under today's conditions, it's not possible, but a movement in a direction is always beneficial because I claim, as much as I complain and moan about the mess they have and the inflation and all this mess, I see some positive steps. And of course, the one biggest negative step was when my eyes were open and I started talking about this issue was in 1971, with the breakdown of Bretton Woods and the elimination of any link to gold. But, not too many years after that, I think it was about 75. Once again, we legalized gold, and that's a bit of freedom that we have. So we have back then there was no interest, and it was illegal. I remember the first coins I bought. I bought Mexican 50 pesos because they were considered numismatic, but they really weren't. So I think being able to own gold, and a lot of people are doing this, I think that's very helpful, and people are understanding it. So that's a bit of a liberty that we got back. If we were still living it with the rules of 1932, everybody would have to become a criminal that thought they should save and protect some of their wealth. So I see it the movement. But if you did it today, the British tried that. I think it was after the First World War. They wanted to go back on the gold standard with the pound, but they just went back with the old ratio. And there was no way. That'd be like saying, okay, we're going back to the gold standard. We know it's worth more than $35. So, so we're going to have a gold standard at $100 an ounce. That gold would be wiped out in a day. And even now at 4,000, you'd think, well, it's never going to go double and triple and quadruple now. And I keep telling myself that's true, but what did it do in the 70s? It quadrupled and it kept going up from $35 on up, and it's still doing that. So even though it astounds me still when I see $4,000, it's possible, and I say it. We shouldn't be shocked if it goes to $8,000. That's only a doubling. And think of what's happened here in the last, years since 1971, and that shows how powerful the market is. It wasn't because good people were trying to restore sound money. That is what the market was doing right now. The market is talking about revaluing and giving us an honest account and hopefully an honest audit, for the gold. gold, because that will give them a little more leeway to print more money and get rid of their savings in a sense. But it wouldn't work to do that. And the other thing is, people ask me, well, what would you do first thing you do with the Fed? Well, what we should do is just deny the Fed's legal authority to monetize debt. Taking government spending and monetizing, that's where the real evil starts. That's what motivates, the Fed to print the money. So if you change those rules, there'd be a revolution, because it wouldn't be sustainable. Interest rates maybe overnight would go to 21% or more. In the 70s, they went to 21%, and we survived it all because we still had some wealth, some liquidation of debt. But the bubble and the distortion and the malinvestment, the deficit is so outlandishly huge that if you put a rule and say stop, it's not going to work. I think the system will go through the ringer. But what I am interested in is education of the monetary system to prepare people for accepting what has to be done, and that is a different story. But we're a long way off from that. So the best in between on this is for people to use the liberties that we still have. And I like to think that I'm on my own gold standard. If I invest money or save money, and it's nothing that is going to be automatically, taken care of by the devaluation of the currency or the inflation, I try to put something away. And I made those decisions, in 71. And they're just think of the 20 years when gold did nothing,
Yeah.
had gone up to $800, and then it went down to, I think it was 270 at the beginning of this century. That's not so long ago.
Hmm.
And that to me, but I had convictions, but I wasn't going wild over it, but just by a modest looking at that and buying. But those conditions don't have that. They're not there right now, because I think, I mean, we should be able to do it, but we're not able to turn it on and say, well, 4,000 sounds like enough. We surely can live within that. We wouldn't have to print money, but I don't believe it would work.
Hello, my fellow silver and gold stackers. Please hit the like and subscribe button. It will really help the silver and gold community grow. It'll help this channel grow, and I'd really appreciate it. Back to the video. What advice would you give the youth right now? Because it feels like so many people around the world are either living paycheck to paycheck, stuck in this debt system. Their purchasing power has been, evaporated since the creation of the Federal Reserve. What advice would you give the youth right now to prepare themselves for what's coming, like you said, that they're going to be put through the ringer?
Yeah, they have to study and understand monetary policy. They have to be exposed to what needs to be done. And the other thing is that they have to have a skill. I think a skill, and if I want to use myself as an example, I always assume that I had a skill, and I used it up until not too many years ago, and that is the practice of medicine. And under bad conditions, I'd rather be a good plumber or a carpenter than I would be to having welfare payments coming from the government. And even though they will continue, Social Security will continue, but it will be with devalued money, and they will be ushering in, a great deal of violence. And that's what we're witnessing right now. So I think that they should, become educated and become trained and make some investments. In the old days, it was sort of an automatic, not in my father's time, because they sort of took short-term loans out and they paid for their houses and their cars. But at the time I was growing up, people, the big investment was putting their money in a house and taking care of it. And, it was a good savings account. So that's not enough right now because of the disruption and the pricing of things. Pricing should be totally free market. And of course, the most important price is the cost of money. The interest rates tells us a lot about the monetary system, and that's going to be very difficult. So I think people have to plan, outside that. And I love the idea because a lot of people are well trained, and maybe it's going to be. I don't understand, the electronic computer age well enough because there's going to be millions of people working and operating that, but there's also this mysterious thing of bubbles and in almost everything and government regulations coming in, and that can always be an added factor. If you're a mechanic and take care of automobiles, I mean that you can do on your own.
Hmm.
And I think having a skill is also very important for a young person to think about, and that can be in addition to a regular job.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Michael Piccioni, founder and president of CanAm Bullion. At CanAm Bullion, we are more than just a precious metals dealer. We are your trusted partner in securing your financial future. As an authorized dealer of the Royal Canadian Mint, we take pride in offering only the highest quality gold and silver products. And with our best price guarantee, you can trust that you're getting the most value for your investment. We offer free, no obligation consultations with one of our precious metals experts. Our commitment to excellence has earned us a 5-star Google rating, a shopper-approved seal of approval, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. These accolades reflect our dedication to transparency, integrity, and exceptional customer service. Are you ready to take the first step towards financial security? Contact CanAm Bullion today for your free consultation. Let us help you build a brighter future with the power of precious metals.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Paul, in the beginning of this episode, you mentioned about, secrecy with the Federal Reserve and how dangerous it is to have secrets because they're private. They're not actually federal. What are your thoughts about, America's, deep state and the Federal Reserve having, secrecy and secret societies? Do you believe that they exist, and how dangerous is it to the world?
They argue that the Federal Reserve demands independence. You don't want the congressman manipulating it. And we see a little bit of that difficulty when the president and the Federal Reserve they argue over interest rates. So I think that we shouldn't have a Fed. And we should recognize that the manipulation of interest rates is so overwhelming and it's going to be difficult. That's why things have to be done outside of the regular marketplace. And I think when on bad times throughout history, people had to go backwards and resort to bartering, and which would be tragic, but it would be better than not having only the government running things. So when you have runaway inflation and in Venezuela or these countries in Germany, they used almost anything that was a hard asset, and that will keep things going. But I think what they want to do is they don't want us to know exactly what the Fed does. That's why I want the audit, and then people would look into that. But they said they want independent. But I taught myself to say every time I hear the word independence of the Fed, they want secrecy,
Yeah.
and they don't want audited, and because there's more and more mischief going on than anybody, more than every time I recognize a new thing the Fed is doing under the table, and it never appears anyplace, and the whole system by its very nature is corrupt, and but then when the corruption take the big thing going on now with Ukraine, they realize there's a lot of corruption with all that money we dump over there.
Hmm.
But at the same time, what about the principle of us defending our empire and us sending all that money over there. That's worse than corruption. But they do, but they don't. That's a different category. That's practicing, good relations with foreign countries and working for peace. And those are the
Right.
kind of lies that we have to dispel.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Paul, it's been such an incredible, conversation with you today. I want to say thank you so much for joining us and speaking, to the sound money community here, the silver and gold community. And as everything develops, I'd really love to have you back on in the future. But thank you so much, Dr. Paul.
Thanks a lot. Nice being with you.
Take care.